Good morning all. It's the 26th of December 2020, Boxing Day here in Canada. And I did not tell a lie when I said we were going to have a white Christmas. I guess I'm going to have to break out the shovel at some point, although I'm not going anywhere today, so we can wait. So, yeah, that's a fair amount of snow. So, white Christmas. Anyway, hopefully you all had a wonderful Christmas day and are enjoying the weekend and your holidays. We'll make it slog our way into the garage here, and we'll get the heater turned on. My trees are starting to bow over with the weight of the snow, so I should probably get out there with a broom and knock that off before they stay that way permanently. Alright, a little nippy in the garage this morning. It's only about 4 degrees Celsius. It's about 38 degrees Fahrenheit out here, so I guess we'll have to work a little bit more quickly to stay warm. You have the 2 little space heaters fired up, so hopefully that'll get this place warmed up in short order. Just wanted to make a quick comment on my last car video that was on the 24th of December, so Christmas Eve day. Really nice to read all of your comments. A lot of my long-term subscribers commenting and wishing me well, wishing me a Merry Christmas. That was very nice, but it was also nice to see a lot of new commenters and some commenters that I haven't seen commenting on the channel for some time. So I try to read and respond to all the comments that I get. If I don't respond with words, I try to give you a like and a heart for sure, at the very least. So thanks again for all those really nice, kind comments and words. They do motivate me to be out here in the garage on cold days. Anyway, let's get to working on the car. So today we're going to be moving backwards in order to move forwards. That seems to be the theme with this car on some days. As mentioned in the previous video, we are going to start taking things apart in order to check fastener tightness and torque according to the manual spec. So we've got our paint markers and whiteout standing by in order to be able to do that. Got our manuals standing by over here. We've just assembling our wrenches and sockets. Pretty much 7/16 half inch and 9/16 inch open end wrenches, ratchets and sockets are pretty much all I'm going to need here on this car. So we'll gather those up, we'll go to town on the car. I'll bring you along when it's necessary. It's going to be a pretty boring video if you just see me taking the car apart and torquing up fasteners. But there are some things I want to talk about. I know I did make a mistake when I assembled the front suspension that we're going to correct today, and I'll show you what I did wrong. I knew I did it wrong, I think the day of or the day after I actually did it, but it's been taking this long for me to be able to go back and correct the issue. So I'll show you what that issue is. I know one person knows what the issue is, but we'll show you where that issue is when I get to it. Some of you are going to laugh at this, but I'm warming my tools up before I start the day. There is nothing colder than tools that have been sitting out in a cold garage and you having to handle them for a long period of time. So taking the time to lay my wrenches out and just got them sitting in front of the radiant heater, and we'll warm those up until they're not so cold to touch on the hands. Alright guys, so here's where I'm at as far as disassembly is concerned, and I wanted to show you where I screwed up initially, and we'll try to rectify the problem. So the problem I had was down here with the lower control arms and in the bushings here. So let me hook you up on the tripod and I'll try to explain the way I had it put together versus the way it should be put together. Well, at least I think it should be put together. And if somebody sees something wrong in my reassembly phase, let me know and I'll take it apart again, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to have it right this time. So hopefully you'll be able to see this okay. So I'm going to sort of demonstrate how I had it assembled previously, which was the wrong way to do it. So initially, there's this nylon bush, and then there's a steel sleeve, and then there's just grab it here, and then there's a nylon bush that goes on the other side, and that fits in here in the lower control arm. So I had installed it exactly as you see. I had just pushed the nylon bush directly in like that. That apparently is incorrect. Just wipe my hands off here. the way this should be installed, and I've done this a couple of times, and they still make mistakes. It's not very self-explanatory in any of the manuals. So here's how I think it should be done. So to pull this back out, so this metal, I think it's called a water screen or something like that. This should go, and you see it's got a flange side to it. It's a little bit bent, but got a flange side to it. So that flange side should point out in the bush. So the bush fits in here like this, and the flange covers sort of the edge of the nylon bush. Then that should go in like so. Okay, let me just stick the steel bush through the other way just to get it out of the way. Live television. And pull it back out. Doesn't help with greasy hands either. I'll put the bush on the... So then that goes back in, okay? Then there's this little sealing ring, just a little rubber ring. My understanding now is that just goes on the outside of that nylon bush, like that. And then eventually this will be capped with a thrust washer, they call it, which will go on the outside like that. So anyway, let me reassemble this. I'll try to take a video as I reassemble it, but that's generally how that is supposed to look now versus the way I had done it previously. So let me try to put this back together. Now, I'm not sure whether this lower vertical link will fit in this space now. I may have to take out the lower control arm bolts, just these 3 bolts, to be able to spread the arms a little bit. I'll leave the 2 bolts in the rear so the bottom spring pan won't detach under that spring pressure. But if I release these 3, that'll give me enough probably room just to spread that to get that lower vertical link in and the trunnion without me having too much trouble. But we'll give it a shot without undoing these bolts first and see if there's enough clearance to get these in. All right. Okay, so that's how that should go. Now we're going to get a little bit of grease. So as we try to, let me see how much clearance I've got first of all, and see if I can do this without undoing those. Oh yeah, I think I've got enough clearance. So as we feed the cross pin in, so we're going to put our vertical link up. So we've got the one thrust washer on the outside face. As we come through, we're going to put another thrust washer on the inside face. Okay. Put our vertical link in place. Slide that through just to hold it. It's going to be pretty tight to get our other thrust washer in there. I can tell you that right now, but maybe doable. See if we can slide this in here. I think I'm going to loosen off this lower arm just to be able to pull it out a little bit. And I'll probably just make it a little bit easier. So let me do that to give us a little bit more clearance in there, and I'll bring you back. Okay, you can see I've just, you probably can't see it, but I've just removed one bolt here and removed one a little bit further back, and that gives that a little bit of play. I think enough to slide that thrust washer in. So we'll continue on. Go back to where we were. So okay, I can get another thrust washer in here. See, I've got more clearance there now, I think. So we'll just drop that other thrust washer in here if we can. Okay. Now at this point, you may need to put that bolt back in to the lower control arm to get the alignment correct. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that now. We've got that thrust washer in place. We'll just try to realign the lower control arm to get the alignment so we can push that through bolt. So we'll do that now. Okay, we managed to get it to align well enough just with the rear bolt in the lower control arm. We're going to put that last thrust washer on. We'll put the castle nut on, and we're going to tighten that up to tighten those bushings. And then we'll follow the manual procedure to torque this down once we have everything tight. I believe we have to tighten it and back it off and then put a cotter pin in. But let me read what the manual says and we'll come back. But anyway, that is what I wanted to show you, was the correct assembly of the thrust washers and the water seals and the rubber seals on the lower control arm. All right, I'll bring you back in a bit. Alright, so according to, this is from the Haynes manual, we're trying to set the end float on this castellated nut here on this bottom fulcrum pin. So it basically says tighten it down until the assembly feels solid. Then you turn the nut back a half to 2 flats until the split pin hole is visible. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're looking for an end float of 0.004 to 0.012. So after we set that end float and put the cotter pin in, we then tap the lower wishbones out with a rubber mallet just to set that. So that's what we're going to do. Alright guys, we're making pretty good progress. There's those locking plates I was talking about. So they've all been torqued down and the locking plates have been bent over, so we're good to go. So we'll put the rotor and hub back on and then install the caliper and the dust brake back shield. And this brake line picks up one of the caliper bolts, so we'll install that at the same time. But pretty much most of the rest of the suspension is done, so we're almost good to go on this side. Alright guys, back in the garage Sunday morning and just finishing off the passenger side checks, and we're pretty much done on this side, and I can report back that the liquid paper is still the winner as far as identifying what bolts have been torqued or not. The paint markers, I don't know if it's just because it's so cold out in the garage, but they were not adhering to the metal very well and were taking a little while to dry, where the liquid paper you can just do a quick stroke and it's dry within about 15 seconds. So everything has been torqued down. I still need to do the sway bar attachment here. I'm missing the little spacer, so I've got to find that. There's a spacer that goes under the control arm for the sway bar brackets that are over there, so I'll have to find those somewhere. Unfortunately, the rotor has gone rusty while it's been sitting here, but nothing we can do about that. I suppose I could get a Scotch-Brite out and scratch that down, but not really a big deal. Maybe I'll scratch it down here on the part where the disc won't actually hit the pads, and we'll just clean that up a little bit, because you'll probably be able to see that through the rims once I decide on what kind of rims I'm actually going to get for this car. Anyway, not too concerned about that at the moment, but all the brake lines have been tightened up, so we're good to go there. So we're going to move over to the driver's side, and we're going to do that side, and then we're going to get under the car, do the oil pan. And there's some suspension pickup points that I need to check on the inside of the frame that I can get to under the car. So, looking good. We'll just continue on, spend another 4 or 5 hours out here today, and hopefully wrap up the front part of this car, and we'll move to the rear of the car. Check up the torque on the fasteners back there. I still need to put some clips on the fuel lines over on the inner frame rail there, so we'll do that as well. All right. Back to work. Okay, about 6 p.m. update Sunday evening. All the top of the car is done, so all the suspension components, all of the motor mounts, all of the attachments for the alternator and water pump, pretty much everything at the top of that's accessible on the top of the chassis is completely checked and torqued. So we're going to get under now, and we're going to check the steering rack. We're going to check the oil pan bolts. And we are going to check a few other things while we're under there. Oh, the lower control arm mounting brackets, bolts are on the inside, so we'll check those as well. So we're getting there. So once that's complete, we'll probably call it a day out here. And then we'll do our checks on the rear of the chassis tomorrow. I think there's a lot less fasteners back there, so that shouldn't take more than a day to do that. And then we can move on to finding stuff to help us get this car started. I've got to dig out things like my oil pressure gauge and my tack and fuel line and a bunch of other stuff. Obviously spark plug leads. I've got to shim the pedestal for the distributor, etc., etc. So we'll finish torquing this stuff up, which I expect will take until tomorrow evening, and then we'll work on getting this hooked up for startup, hopefully sometime next week. Okay, front part of the car is now done up to the transmission bell housing. We'll work from the bell housing back tomorrow and to the rear of the car. So pretty good progress getting all that done, and happy about that. So I can feel a little bit better when I finally get this car on the road that none of the fasteners will be loose. So they may come loose, but they are not loose initially. So, all right, we'll call it a day here, and we'll get back out here tomorrow, and we'll start working on the rear of the car. See you then. All right, guys, now Monday the 28th of December, and we're just going to pick it up from where we left off yesterday and start working from the bell housing back and checking all the fasteners. Got the front tires put back on the car, and we're just about to remove the rear tires. One critical area we want to check are the nuts that hold the hub to the trailing arms. So we're going to recheck those. I probably already torqued them, but we're going to recheck them and check them off the list, because those are kind of a critical part of the car. And we'll check all of the other fasteners along the way. Okay, here we go. All right, guys, after dinner Monday night, and we're just doing our final checks out here. Everything is now officially checked and torqued down as per the manual. The only thing I've got to do is put the tires back on. And the only thing I didn't do was put these clips on the fuel and brake lines along the inner chassis rail. It's just not enough clearance to get a rivet gun in there. These are riveted onto the frame. So what I plan to do is I'll just keep these handy, and when I pull the exhaust off to do that painting, I will get the rivet gun out and we'll attach those and attach the lines properly in 2 locations along that frame rail. And the other thing I found when I was looking for those clips, I found some old spare parts from my sway bar. This is an old Adco kit that I have, and got parts from numerous cars in here, but never throw anything out. So remember I was complaining about the quality of the end links from British Parts Northwest, so I've got some better quality hardware here that I can swap those out for. So we're going to do that probably tomorrow first thing, get that out of the way. And then, as mentioned, I think what we'll start doing is getting stuff ready to start the car. So that means, as I mentioned, fluids. Got to probably bring out the electric fuel pump. I don't think we'll use a mechanical pump for the initial start. We'll probably use an electric pump. So we'll get that out, get battery charged, get our battery pack charged, figure out the wiring as far as the coil is concerned. I think I have an old ignition switch that I can use. Want to bring out my tack. I want to bring out my oil pressure gauge, because I got to hook that up to the line here. I want to bring out my temperature gauge, and I have to kind of figure out whether I need to run the voltage stabilizer for that. I think I do, so that would probably mean I have to bring out, can't remember whether the voltage stabilizer is on the back of the speedo or in the back of the tack, so we'll see. I think I need to hook that up in order to register properly. So, and numerous other connections we're going to have to make over to the starter. We're going to probably just run a wire directly to the starter solenoid, and from there we'll probably have to run a wire back to the switch as well to trigger that. So got to figure it out. I'm not the best electrically, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to get this started on Saturday, I think is the D-Day, and I invited Lynn to come and give me a hand not only with the startup. I'll put him on fire duty, but he's my wiring guru, so he'll help me wire the car up in order to get it started. So that's what the plan is. So we'll get back out here tomorrow, and we'll start digging out what we need to dig out in order to get this thing ready for startup on hopefully Saturday. That's the plan anyway. All right, we'll upload this so you can see where I'm at. Not too much content, obviously. It was just really, checking torque on fasteners. You can't really do much of a video, but I just wanted to let you know I was out here doing that. It's part of the process. And that's it for now. So we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Thanks for watching.